Welcome to a new edition. I'm Nadia Sharbi, and this week, as the French gradually get back to a new normal, we're putting the focus on those who contracted COVID-19 and came out the other side by no means unscathed. Let's start with a few accounts from people who, as requested by French authorities, took on the virus at home, often alone, rather than descend on the country's already overstretched hospitals. Even for these minor cases, the experience has been traumatic.
Like many, Virginie has no idea how she caught COVID-19. Before lockdown, she commuted via a busy metro line. For the first 3 days, she juggled digestive problems, chills, a fever and a dry cough. Then came a burning sensation in her lungs and severe headaches.
En fait, tous les symptômes ne faisaient qu'augmenter. Ça ne se calmait jamais. Ça touche l'ensemble du corps et la tête aussi. Pour vous dire à quel point j'avais peur, l'ensemble de mes affaires étaient prêtes sur ma table basse pour que je puisse partir à l'hôpital en 1 seconde.
She struggled to fight off the virus for 34 days.
Je l'ai géré comme je pouvais. J'ai sollicité le moins possible mon corps en me reposant vraiment, en passant de mon lit à mon canapé pour que mon corps continue de lutter. Je me suis nourrie très correctement, je me suis beaucoup hydratée. On se met en mode survie.
Patrice works as a cameraman within the events industry, attending top international gatherings. It was after Paris Fashion Week that he felt the first symptoms of the virus.
Forcément, j'ai été en contact avec beaucoup de gens de l'international qui venaient notamment d'Italie, de Chine, qui venaient d'un peu partout. La semaine qui a suivi, j'étais très malade pendant 10-15 jours.
When the lockdown was imposed, he was one of many Parisians to flee the capital.
Une fois arrivé en Normandie, je continuais à tousser un peu et puis à un moment, j'ai eu de nouveau une douleur thoracique, mais pour le coup assez violente. Être seul et malade, c'est encore plus angoissant. D'autant quand il n'y a aucune réponse médicale, qu'on va voir un médecin qui ne veut pas nous ausculter. Puis alors quand on dit autour de nous qu'on pense l'avoir, même si on ne voit pas les gens, même des amis, on se sent un peu pestiféré.
This is only the second time Linda has ventured out after 34 days infected with COVID-19. We speak to her a few steps from her home.
Ça a été effrayant parce que j'étais seule et qu'à un moment donné, dans cette fatigue, j'ai senti la vie me quitter.
She found the strength to get through by thinking of her teenage daughters and thanks to some unexpected support.
Ma voisine du dessous entendait bien que c'était silencieux à la maison, qu'il n'y avait plus de vie. Elle allait me chercher une baguette fraîche, elle allait me chercher des fruits, elle m'a fait une soupe. Elle accrochait ça à ma porte, elle m'appelait, elle me disait « Je vous ai apporté sur le palier, vous trouverez ». Elle a été vraiment formidable.
Linda hopes that by sharing her experience, she can influence those who remain skeptical about the virus.
Well, the unpredictable and arbitrary nature of this virus has also taken its toll on those cases that did make it to hospital. After their time in intensive care, many patients are left with devastating physical and neurological damage that will make their long road to recovery that much more challenging.
Jambe droite, jambe gauche, on alterne. On peut aller un petit peu plus vite.
20 days after he was admitted into hospital, this patient is slowly recovering from a week in intensive care.
Après la toilette, par exemple, je suis vachement... Puis ça passe. En quelques minutes, ça passe. Mais on est toujours un petit peu... Le moindre effort, ça coûte.
Doctors keep a close watch on patients as they remain in fragile condition, even after recovering from COVID-19.
C'est une spécificité des gens qui sont passés en réanimation, qui ont été intubés, ventilés, curarisés, ce qui fait que leurs muscles ne bougent pas du tout pendant 8, 15 jours, 3 semaines, et donc ils perdent énormément en performance.
And walking isn't the only basic skill they need to be taught. Some must relearn how to swallow. This speech therapist is helping to recover what would normally be an automatic reaction.
Et on avale.
Après l'AREA, on peut avoir donc des difficultés à restimuler correctement ces muscles qui participent à la déglutition. Donc on les restimule pour qu'ils soient de nouveau réactifs et qu'ils puissent permettre d'avaler correctement sans fausse route.
And while many younger people are able to recover from the disease at home, symptoms can linger for weeks.
Mon état est stationnaire. J'ai la respiration coupée, je suis vite essoufflée. J'ai les poumons malades et ça pompe quand même beaucoup d'énergie. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes le 30 avril et les poumons vont sans doute guérir d'ici 3 semaines à mois.
Meanwhile, others have lost some of their senses. 6 weeks after falling ill, Chloé Duval still can't smell.
Alors là, j'ai de la cannelle et je sens rien.
Or taste anything.
C'est décevant, chaque bouchée est décevante, quoi.
While little data is available on the after effects of the coronavirus, scientists have noted that a general state of tiredness can last for several weeks.
As we've just seen, the physical and emotional impact of COVID-19 is significant, and the recovery process is complicated further by how little we know about this virus. To help us get some clarity, we can cross over now to our guest. Dr. Benjamin Davido is an infectious disease specialist at the Garches Teaching Hospital west of Paris. Hello, thank you for being with us.
Hello.
Now, initially there was a lot of concern about patients who were taken ill a second time. What do we know about that so far?
What we've noticed over the last few days and weeks is a big drop in the number of new cases. But at the same time, we've seen patients who were previously identified as having suffered from COVID-19 coming back to us with chronic symptoms, sometimes up to 6 weeks later. And most of these patients are women around the age of 45. The truth is, we don't have the tools to confirm full recovery from COVID-19. What we have established is the people I just mentioned no longer present any biological signs of the illness, which would indicate that it's not a case of evolving symptoms. When we first saw those patients on suspicion of them having contracted COVID-19, their blood results were very irregular, and that's no longer the case, which all points to their apparent relapse not being a new infectious episode, but more probably other signs linked to what we call immune dysfunction, causing the latest symptoms.
And are the people who contracted COVID-19 then immune to it?
Some people, often younger patients, will present very few symptoms, sometimes none at all. And it's not limited to SARS-CoV-2, but we know from other viral infectious diseases that patients who present fewer symptoms don't develop many antibodies. Then, on the other hand, you have the people who were taken into hospital and were seriously ill. They should have positive blood tests, develop neutralizing antibodies, and therefore be immune. But the real question is, for how long? Not everyone agrees. The optimistic answer is that, for example, with SARS-CoV-1, which was the first coronavirus epidemic, most people did become immune. 80% were immune for 1 or 2 years on average. And we also have encouraging data from recent research on monkeys, which shows that once infected with COVID-19, the primates did become immune. So, given that humans are basically great apes, it's likely that we will be as well.
And the common fear that we all have regarding this virus perhaps feeds another side effect for recovering patients, which is social rejection and isolation. Is that a real problem?
Absolutely, it's a real risk. Society might be tempted to shun those who contracted the illness and consider them as almost plague-ridden, as a threat. As they near recovery, patients do express concern about that. And I'm afraid that so long as we don't have a vaccine or potential for effective treatment with the necessary randomized testing, then we won't be able to reassure people.
And faced with all this, are COVID survivors, if you will, getting organised?
There are forums and new organizations being set up by people who contracted COVID-19 to allow them to speak out and reassure people by talking about their recovery or explaining what they went through. And that's perhaps fueled their desire to help out with scientific research, for instance with plasmapheresis, where people who are infected by the virus contribute by giving blood, plasma and antibodies. There's research currently underway in that field at Saint-Antoine Hospital in Paris, and we're waiting for the results. But it's true that there's also a lot of talk about a therapeutic vaccine, rather than a preventative one being the way forward. And if that's the case, then we'll need volunteers to test them, both healthy individuals and former COVID-19 patients.
Dr. Benjamin Davido, thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.
Now, despite the many difficulties faced by those who contracted COVID-19, recovery in itself is, of course, always a cause for celebration for the patients themselves, their loved ones, but also the medical staff who nursed them back to health. And some cases are especially heartwarming, like that of French centenarian Hélène-François, who beat the virus and is now fighting fit.
Expecting a simple goodbye, Hélène-François is in for a surprise. She receives a standing ovation from medical staff as she's discharged after 3 months in hospital. Cured of COVID-19 at the age of 103, she hasn't lost her sense of humour.
J'avais envie de guérir. Je voulais en sortir. C'est venu, c'est reparti. Dieu soit béni.
As soon as the very first symptoms appeared, Hélène-François was quickly taken into hospital. She developed a weaker strain of the virus.
Une délivrance.
Barely in the door, and Hélène hasn't lost sight of priorities.
On va c'était ça. Vous voulez un petit apéro?
A former nurse, Hélène has travelled across Africa and the Middle East. Only an unusually strong immune system and genetic makeup could explain her resistance to the virus. Her only remaining family is her great-nephew Dennis. He's not particularly surprised by her recovery.
Au niveau de ses exercices de rééducation, elle était toujours extrêmement volontaire, la plus volontaire de son étage. Et même des infirmiers m'ont dit qu'elle donnait la pêche aux autres.
Hélène-François lived through the deadly Spanish flu epidemic, and a century later, she's made it through COVID, going back to the independent life she lived before going into hospital.
Well, that's where we leave this edition. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to France 24.
Fake news. Noun. False stories that appear to be news, spread on the internet or using other media. At France 24, our job is to provide you with information that's been verified. We check sources, we check facts, we sort what is true from what is fake.
At the France 24 Observers, we verify photos and videos circulating online. If they're fake, we let you know and tell you how we spotted them.
In Fact or Fake, we dig into viral stories around Europe to shake out the truth from the trash.
Every day, the Info Migrants team scours social networks to fight fake news about the reality of migration.
France 24, news based on facts.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.